Horror and the Oscars have always had a complicated relationship. The Academy often turns its back on horror, viewing it as a genre for mass audiences, not high art. However, there are exceptions that have proven otherwise. These films show that horror can be more than just box office hits. They can be true masterpieces worthy of the highest honors. Today, we'll explore 10 horror films that changed the game at the Oscars. What if horror could finally be taken seriously? The Exorcist, 1973, directed by William Friedkin, was the first horror film ever nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, a groundbreaking moment that forever changed how the Academy saw the genre. With 10 nominations and 2 wins, it proved that horror wasn't just about scares. It was cinema at its most visceral and artistic. The story of a young girl possessed by a demonic force shocked audiences to their core. Reports of fainting, panic attacks, and mass hysteria filled the news. People claimed the film itself was cursed. But beyond the shock and screams, The Exorcist was a technical and emotional triumph, blending faith, fear, and filmmaking brilliance. It showed that true terror isn't found in monsters, but in the battle for the human soul. A masterpiece that turned horror into art. And the Oscars never looked the same again. Before Jaws, 1975, summer was the quiet season for Hollywood. Then came a 27-year-old Steven Spielberg and changed everything. His terrifying tale of a great white shark stalking a beach town became the first true summer blockbuster, redefining how movies were made, marketed, and experienced. Jaws earned 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, and won 3 Academy Awards for editing, sound, and that unforgettable music score by John Williams. But beyond the trophies, Jaws captured something primal, the fear of the unseen lurking beneath the surface. Spielberg turned a malfunctioning mechanical shark into an advantage, using suggestion and suspense to create sheer terror. The result? A cultural phenomenon that made millions afraid to go into the water, and proved that horror could dominate both the box office and the Oscars. With Jaws, the monster movie became a masterpiece, and cinema would never be the same again. When The Omen, 1976, hit theaters, it wasn't just another horror movie, it was pure, elegant dread. The story of a child born as the Antichrist terrified audiences, but what truly made it unforgettable was the sound. Composer Jerry Goldsmith crafted a chilling score filled with a demonic Latin choir, a masterpiece called Ave Satani. The music alone made hearts race and skin crawl, elevating the film far beyond its terrifying plot. The Academy took notice. Goldsmith won the Oscar for Best Original Score, marking one of the rare times a horror film was recognized, not for its story, but for its atmosphere. The dark beauty that seeps under your skin. Even today, that haunting choral chant remains one of the scariest and most iconic sounds in cinema history. The Omen proved that true horror isn't just seen, it's heard. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, 1980, one of the greatest horror films ever made, received 0 Oscar nominations. Not one. That fact alone still shocks film lovers today. The eerie isolation of the Overlook Hotel, Jack Nicholson's unhinged brilliance, and Kubrick's obsessive attention to every terrifying detail. All of it was ignored by the Academy. At the time, critics were divided. Some called it slow, others dismissed it entirely. But over the years, The Shining transformed from a misunderstood oddity into a cinematic masterpiece. A film studied, quoted, and endlessly rewatched. Today, it's impossible to imagine any greatest horror films list without The Shining. Yet in 1980, the Oscars simply looked the other way. Sometimes the scariest thing in Hollywood is how blind the Academy can be. It became the only horror thriller in history to win the Academy's Big Five: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Screenplay. Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins delivered performances so chilling, so psychologically real, that they redefined what horror could be. There were no ghosts, no monsters, only human evil, intelligent and terrifyingly calm. And that made it even scarier. For the first time, the Academy recognized that horror could be high art, that a story about fear, darkness, and obsession could sit alongside Hollywood's most prestigious dramas. The Silence of the Lambs didn't just change horror, it made the world listen, and it's still whispering. Hello, Clarice. The Sixth Sense, 1999, the film that made an entire generation whisper, I See Dead People. Nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director, it didn't win a single one, but its impact was undeniable. M. Night Shyamalan's haunting storytelling and that unforgettable twist ending turned it into a pop culture phenomenon overnight. The film blurred the line between supernatural horror and emotional drama, delivering chills that came not just from ghosts, but from grief, guilt, and the human need for closure. Even without an Oscar, The Sixth Sense proved that horror could be intimate, intelligent, and deeply moving. And more than 20 years later, we're still haunted by that one quiet line. I see dead people. Black Swan, 2010. A haunting masterpiece that dances on the razor's edge between beauty and madness. Directed by Darren Aronofsky, the film earned 5 Academy Award nominations and brought Natalie Portman her first Oscar for Best Actress, a performance that consumed her both physically and emotionally. Unlike traditional horror films filled with monsters or blood, Black Swan explores the terror within the human mind, the kind that creeps in through obsession, insecurity, and the unbearable pressure to be perfect. Portman's Nina Sayers isn't fighting an external villain. She's battling the reflection in the mirror, the darker version of herself she cannot escape. Aronofsky transformed the world of ballet, usually associated with grace and beauty, into a psychological battlefield. Every movement, every flicker of light, every crack in the mirror amplifies the horror of self-destruction. Black Swan proved that horror can be elegant, poetic, and disturbingly human, showing that the most frightening monsters often live inside us. Get Out, 2017, wasn't just a horror film, it was a cultural earthquake. Written and directed by Jordan Peele, the movie shattered expectations and redefined what modern horror could be. It earned 4 Oscar nominations and won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, making Peele the first African-American to win in that category. At its core, Get Out is a razor-sharp social satire wrapped in the skin of a psychological thriller. Peele took the everyday anxiety of being an outsider and turned it into something truly terrifying. The film's suburban setting, polite smiles, perfect lawns, friendly small talk, becomes a stage for a deeper horror, the exploitation of Black identity and the illusion of post-racial America. What makes Get Out so powerful is how seamlessly it blends fear with meaning. The chilling, sunken place became an instant metaphor for silenced voices. Its tension, humor, and symbolism made audiences squirm, not just from fear but from recognition. Get Out proved that horror can be bold, political, and wildly entertaining all at once. A new kind of masterpiece where the real monster is society itself. A Quiet Place, 2018, took the horror genre in a completely new direction with its innovative approach to storytelling. Directed by John Krasinski, this terrifying thriller relies on silence as its most powerful tool. The premise is simple yet brilliant. A family must live in complete silence to avoid being hunted by alien creatures that are triggered by sound. With no dialogue for most of the film, A Quiet Place immerses you in a world where every footstep, every breath, is a potential death sentence. The sound design in this film is crucial, creating a tense atmosphere where silence speaks louder than any scream could. It's no surprise that the film earned an Oscar nomination for Best Sound Editing, as the sound work perfectly complements the visceral fear. The film redefined horror by showing that true terror doesn't need loud noises or jump scares. It can thrive in the silence between sounds. A Quiet Place proves that the fear of the unknown, amplified by silence, is just as chilling as any monster. It's a haunting reminder. Sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't hear coming. Hereditary, 2018, directed by Ari Aster, is a disturbing masterpiece that redefined the horror genre. With its unsettling atmosphere and relentless tension, it explores grief, family secrets, and the terrifying legacies that haunt us. Yet, despite its immense critical acclaim, Hereditary became one of the most shocking examples of Oscar oversight in recent years. The film's standout performance by Toni Collette was universally praised, with many calling it one of the best performances of the year. Colette's portrayal of a mother unraveling under the weight of unimaginable loss and supernatural horrors is both heart-wrenching and terrifying. Yet, despite her gripping performance, she was completely ignored by the Academy, which sparked outrage and disappointment among fans and critics alike. Hereditary pushed boundaries with its dark and radical storytelling, blending family drama with psychological horror. It showcased how the Academy still hesitates to embrace truly innovative and dark narratives in the horror genre. The film's chilling atmosphere, unsettling visuals, and emotional depth proved that horror can be more than just scares. It can be a profound exploration of human vulnerability. In the end, Hereditary reminded us that the Academy's reluctance to acknowledge groundbreaking horror films continues to be one of the genre's greatest injustices. Horror and the Oscars, a love-hate story. While the Academy rarely recognizes horror, these films proved that fear can be just as impactful as drama or comedy. They've shown that horror deserves its place in the spotlight. And with that, the future of the genre at the Academy is still unfolding.